Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, turn on for me.
Okay.
I
So, my name is Roxanna Nic Liam, and these two girls are Ruby and Amber Lennon. We're triplets. Now, so, uniform. Can you hear me?
yeah.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, all good, all good. So, we're here today to talk about women in poetry. And I obviously was asked to do this because I am a woman and I also am a poet. And then I asked you to because obviously this is part of Access Hacks to make certain subjects accessible to Leaving Cert students. And you two are also Leaving Cert students. Is that correct?
Yes, we are.
No, you've got me again.
Will we go on to? Will we do it on a phone? Maybe it'll be faster.
Frozen. Do you want to try call back in on your phone and I'll just...
That's what I was gonna. We're gonna do that now. Yeah, I'll send you the link. You just go on.
Okay. Okay. So I
do that now. So we just press there.
Okay, so just mute yourself. That's what's happening. Oh, we've just had technical problems already. This is terrible. Okay, they're gone again. Okay, so until Ruby and Amber come back in, I'm just gonna talk. I'll just do a monologue of myself. So yeah, my name is Roxanna Nic Liam. I'm a performer, and a few years ago I started to perform my own poetry. I had always written poetry, and then I just kind of decided to give it a go. So I asked Ruby and Amber on here because they are doing their Leaving Cert as well, and my introduction to poetry was studying it at school. So a lot of these are just questions for the girls, so they're not here. So if anyone has any questions for me to fill time until they hopefully come back with a better quality look and sound. But basically my introduction to poetry was through Sylvia Plath, which, oh, here's one of them.
Hey, can you hear us? Hey, that's fair.
There you are. Hi. Sorry, I was just waffling on to myself there for the last 3 minutes, but we can see you and we can hear you, and you look fabulous.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I was just talking a bit there about my introduction to, like, seriously to poetry was, and it's funny because you have a similar case as well. Oh my God, they're gone again.
No, we're not.
Oh, no. Okay, again, I'm just going to keep talking until they come back. I'm so sorry about this.
Are we not?
If there is anyone still watching. So
You're not
yeah,
here.
so Sylvia Plath. So basically what I thought poetry was just writing things in rhyme. There you are.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was...
I think your connection just wherever you are is quite poor. Maybe it's because you're in there.
Usually okay, isn't it?
Okay. So girls, what about you? What was your kind of introduction into poetry? Was it through school, or did you have kind of any connection or any kind of contact with it before that?
Well, like, we kind of grown up like seeing poetry, obviously, because you've been doing poetry, and we kind of did learn about the depth of poetry in school. Like, I never realized, like, I never analysed any poetry before. I kind of just read it and like looked at it, and I never really thought too much deeply into it until school. And like the teacher would say, like she'd go break it down bit by bit. She'd talk about the structure, the words, the language, the everything, like the techniques and stuff. And like then I started, like, after doing that for a few years, then I started to take my own interpretation from that. And that's what poetry is all about. Like poetry to one person can mean something to someone and completely different meaning to someone else.
Yeah. Well, it's also, I found like, because sometimes like I come as a teenager, I might come across a poem and I'd be like, I love that, but I couldn't really express why I loved something. It's the same with film as well. Like when I started like watching kind of independent films, and I was like, I know I like that, but I don't know why. It was so weird. And then like as you kind of like learn how to critique, because that's what you're doing really in school, is learning to and critique it, and kind of appreciate it in a more kind of meaningful way. So when I was doing my Leaving Cert, which was 75 years ago, I did my Leaving Cert in 2006. You were 3 years old.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so we had, this is a discussion about women in poetry. So obviously I'm just having to start with the general kind of appreciation of poetry. But for me, the two female poets, we studied 7 poets, and 2 of them were always female. So the two on mine were Sylvia Plath and Elizabeth Bishop, and I just connected instantly to Sylvia Plath.
Yeah, me too.
I think a lot of people do, because they're teenagers and they're having, they kind of identify with maybe some of the darkness in Sylvia Plath. And she didn't come up on my Leaving Cert in the end. It was Elizabeth Bishop, which she's still an incredible. I think I've grown to appreciate her a lot more as I got older. But yous are frozen again, but I think you can still hear me, can you?
Yeah, we can hear you.
There you are.
Okay. Yeah.
So so who's on your course? Which female poets are on your course?
We have Sylvia Plath, and Evan Boland. Yeah, Sylvia Plath and Evan Boland are the top 2 female poets on our course.
Amazing. And you both had a similar connection to Sylvia Plath. I remember you talking to me about it before, Ruby. That you kind of, what was it like that drew you to kind of her more so?
I think like I didn't even know why I was connecting with her poetry. I didn't even know what it was, but I'd literally would be reading her poems, and I'd always just be like, I love that so much, like what you were saying, and you don't know why you love it. And then as we went into it, I just realized how much she struggled as a woman, and being a girl and growing up around women my whole life, I just appreciated the passion she had, and I appreciated how she had so much creativity that's from pain, and it was just so beautiful to me.
And then Amber, you were talking earlier on, Evan Boland would be a poet that I wouldn't be as familiar with. You were talking about a couple of her poems earlier on, so what kind of about her drew you to her?
I like Evan Boland because she covers a lot of things, but she's really she seems to be cover a lot about Irish history and the past of Ireland as well. She really talks about war a lot. She'll talk about the famine. She'll talk about the troubles as well, society as well. She really talk, and as well violence within Ireland, and the mindset of some Irish people, and she really talks about her experience as a woman, and she talks a lot about motherhood as well. And she really just covers so many different things, but they all kind of link together. It's nearly an ongoing theme of her poems, but she one poem, they're all different, but they somehow link as well, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, of course. And I think as well, with someone like Evan Boland, obviously Ireland's history is very violent. It always has been, the Troubles, and then obviously before that, and things like the famine. We've always seen that through kind of more male kind of gaze. We've seen men talk about it a lot. And a lot of the time it's actually women's women's kind of place in that history has been erased. So I think that's why Evan Boland, I don't think I'd ever heard of her until I was, because she Sorry, maybe it's my connection that's going constantly, is it?
You just went there for a second. Yeah, you just went there for a second.
Yeah, that keeps happening. Sorry, I also have a young boy next door who is playing Minecraft, so that also might be affecting this. There's not enough internet. But yeah, I think like we were talking a little bit earlier on. We were talking about what we were going to talk about, and we were saying about how because I was saying, do you think they're female poets? Like, do you think that like female poets have to write about being female or being women? And we were saying we don't think that they do, but I think especially more like pre 21st century, it couldn't help but influence whatever was going on in your, like, it was whatever else was going on in your work. Women were just oppressed, so it was always going to influence their work in some way.
Yes.
And again, just for anyone watching this on Facebook Live, if you have questions, just pop them in and we can talk about them, or if there's like little comments or anything, you can throw it in. Again, if there's anyone watching, I don't know. This could be our nanny. Nanny, if you're there and you have any questions, we'll come up and visit you soon. But do you like do you think, like, say, we have a deeper appreciation of these kind of poets because we're women, or do you think that men could look at these this poetry and kind of get the same kind of connection to it?
I think that women in poetry, they have another layer of passion and emotion behind their work, and it's not the same as men in poetry. Like, as much as I love Paul Durkin, Seamus Heaney, I appreciate and respect their work, and I think it's amazing, but you just can't compare the struggle of women like in society, and how we can connect to them. Like, it's so different, because although we're all all the poetry is unique, we all share pain and fear, like feminine fierceness, and there's such a whole different dimension which is portrayed so much in the poetry within women, that you don't get that from the poetry with men. And I think, like, all the different poets on the different Leaving Cert courses, although they are all diverse and different, they all share the same struggles and the problems with the patriarchy and the experience of being a woman and depression and all the abuse and stuff like that. So I think that's something that you can't really get from men. Yeah, there was a question there, wasn't there?
No, yeah, we had a question that was basically, so say in the curriculum, there's always two women, and one of the things we were always told was to study the women, because one woman is definitely always going to come up. So you kind of become like a bit obsessed with that. Do you think, like, so like you have 6 poets that you're studying, so it'd be like 2 women, 4 men.
Yeah.
Do you think that's enough representation? And like, do you think there'll ever be a time when there's like 4 women and 2 men, and it's like, which man?
Yeah, that's very true. I think that, like, it's a bit weird, because I feel like even the women that we have studied, they're always the ones that really stick with you. So that's why I don't really understand why it's like there's always just 2 women. Yeah, there's more of an emphasis on the male poets, and we do actually study them a lot more. Yeah. But whereas I think, I don't know whether it's just because I'm a woman, but I feel as even my whole class, I feel like we all maybe this is just our class, but I feel like we all resonate a lot more with the women poets.
Yeah. I think it's because we are so underrepresented in so many things, like in so many forms of media and art, that when one does break through, it's like that thing. They have, first of all, they're always going to be extra good, because to break through you have to be that big. Yeah. You know, and it's not to I mean, obviously the male poets are amazing and they're there for a reason, but it's that thing where there are less opportunities for women always. Yeah. So, you know, who are the next Evan Bolins and Sylvia Plaths and things like that. So so we're talking about like the power structures in women's lives, influencing their work. Do you think what do you think, like, saying now we're sitting here, I know there's like a couple of years between me and you, but like do you think in like 50 years, say, like my grandchildren are going to be studying in school, like what when we do have it, like in 50 years it's going to be still with like 4 women and 2 men.
Yeah, it's
what do you think, like, do you think like it is better, or it is moving on, and that there'll ever be a time when, you know, we won't say a female poet or a woman poet, and the fact that they're a woman won't be significant in any way?
I hope so. Like, I really hope so. But like, I think it is progressing. Like, I do think it is progressing, and there's more awareness of it. There's more people that speak up about it. We're shining a light more on the women poetry now. I think more people speak up about it now, but it's still really, really like gradual. Do you get me? Like, I really do hope it comes to a point where there's no even thought behind it. It's just like it's equal. Right? Like, we don't need to think of it that way. But at the end of the day, there's no point in saying it's equal, because it's not. It's never really equal. Like, and
until like we have full equality, that the poetry won't reflect that.
Yeah, and art in general, like
enough. Cool. So Ruby, do you have a favorite Sylvia Plath poem?
I do. My favorite Sylvia Plath poem is Pheasant. When I heard this, I just loved it straight away. I don't know why. It just hit me. I loved it.
Cool. Will you read a bit of that poem for us?
I will. You said you would kill it this morning. Do not kill it. It startles me still. The juk of that odd, dark head pacing through the uncooked grass on the elm's hill. Is it something to own a pheasant, or even to be visited at all? I am not mystical. It isn't as if I thought I had a spirit. It is simply in its element that gives it its kingliness a right. The print of its big foot last winter, the trail track on the snow in our court, the wonder of it in that parlour, through cross-hatch of sparrow and starling. Is it its rareness then? Is it rare? But a dozen would be worth having, 100 on that hill green and red, crossing and recrossing, a fine thing. It is such a good shape, so vivid, its little cornucopia. It unclaps, brown as a leaf and loud, settles in the elm and is easy. It was sunning in the narcissi. I trespassed stupidly. Let be, let be.
Love that. Mic drop.
She's such an icon.
Yeah. And so you said there, but it turned out it was my connection that was unstable all this time. That was the twist of this whole thing. But why did you say you loved that poem, or what was it about that poem that kind of drew you to it?
So like, it's the poem itself is what I interpreted from it was kind of the ending of her and her marriage, and she does speak a lot about like being victimization of men in her life. That from her father, like just like in the poem Daddy and stuff. And
that was a Nazi, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think so. He would like she had a lot of struggles with men in her life. And yeah, that one was kind of like the end of her marriage, or when she felt as if she was kind of begging for hope left in the relationship. And she kind of had him on a pedestal. She had him on a pedestal, and like when they talk about cross,
the amount of like what his work is amazing, but the amount of what's the word, like praise he got for his work and opportunities he got for his work,
because he's the man,
never exactly that she just never got and never was.
I know,
you know, it can't ever, it's never easy when, like, you know, one person is getting the praise for something that you are overlooked for constantly. But it's just funny though, like, isn't it, that you're like, it's like, this is like, I really relate to this poem, this is about her marriage and but like, what is it about poetry that you're just like, her circumstances, her like life couldn't be more different from what your life is?
Yeah, exactly. That's what's so beautiful about it.
Yeah.
That
like, sorry, go ahead.
It can be can be relatable even if you can't relate to her actual circumstance.
Yeah. But she's obviously writing something that's so accessible to people, and like her kind of, I think that's why when you're a teenager and you first kind of like, I think it's like Charles Bukowski for men and Sylvia Plath for women, there's a certain kind of darkness there that you haven't seen in poetry before, and talking about that openly, and it's that thing when you're like, and when you're feeling depressed and you're feeling down and people keep going, oh, like, cheer up, snap out of it, and you're just like, but then you read something and it's like, it's not telling you like everything's gonna be all, you know, that kind of way.
Yeah,
And there's
real.
nearly more comfort in that sometimes, when it's just
I wouldn't say raw, and it's real,
raw.
and
That's a great word.
yeah, that's the word, raw.
Yeah. I found my old Leaving Cert poetry book today, and it's got like all them that, like, I was such a nerd, like all the little notes I wrote and all. And I was looking at Mirror, the Sylvia Plath poem, and like, just even looking at that, and like, I still love it when I look at it, and I was just getting completely new stuff from it that I just had not even, you know, that kind of way, as a like a 32-year-old reading it, as opposed to being like a 16-year-old or 15-year-old
who's gone through more stuff in your life, and
yeah, just like what you kind of like, what jumps out at you. And I think that's what poetry does better than anything, is that at different stages of your life, you start to see new things, no matter how much you analyze something, but your life experience will just kind of like I don't know, it'll just kind of, it'll add stuff, and or you know, to what you've read, and that you feel like you know inside out,
and things stand out to you, like
yeah. And Amber, then, do you have a poem that you wanted to read? Was it an Evan Boland poem?
Yeah, I love Evan Boland's poem, Child of Our Time. It's one of my favourites. I'll read it out for you now as well. So it's, yesterday I knew no lullaby. You've taught me overnight to order this song, which takes from your final cry. It's tune from your unreasoned end. It's reason. It's rhythm from the discord of your murder. It's motive from the fact you cannot listen. We, who should have known how to instruct, with rhymes for your waking, rhythms for your sleep, names for the animals you took to bed, tales to distract, legends to protect, later an idiom for you to keep, and living must learn from you dead, to make our broken images rebuild themselves around your limbs, your broken image. Find for your sake, whose life our idol. Talk has cost, a new language. Child of our times have robbed you from your cradle. Sleep in a world, your final sleep has woken. And like that poem, when she says a new language, like a lot of her poems are built off this theme of a new language, because she really has an issue with, like, that poem is basically about the Monaghan bombings, and a child was killed. I think there was four kids killed. I'm not sure about that, about the numbers, but there was people killed in it, and like she's basically talking about how the society, like, because of the violence and because of the mindset of Irish people at the time of the Troubles, that caused even more harm, because it was nearly adding coal to the fire, which ended up being a death of a child. And although she was nearly putting the blame on society and people, and that general chatter that goes around, oh, you heard this on the news, and it's that, she wasn't putting the blame on it, but she said that she was basically making a point that they really add to the issue. They really, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And you start to become desensitized to like violence, because like sometimes the more normalized those kind of things are, and it's just like you forget the people behind those numbers. Like
you human being.
Yeah, like I'm working on a thing at the minute. It's the 40th anniversary of Stardust. I don't know if you have ever heard of Stardust, but it was a 40 years ago, a fire in a nightclub, and 48 people were killed. And like, it's something that I've always heard. It's like something that everyone in Dublin knows, and like it was such a horrific thing happening in Dublin. And I just was reading the names out loud, and I just started bawling, because everything I had heard, I had forgotten that they're actual humans, and I think that happens
Yeah.
with a lot, like
they become a number nearly.
And those like bombings, there's a Monaghan bombings, the Oma bombings, and then on Talbot Street as well. I don't know if you've ever noticed, that's beside where you live, and there's a plaque there and all the names on it, and like it's just that thing, you walk past these things all the time, and you hear like numbers in the news, and with any kind of like war, you just kind of become, and then you just read something like that,
yeah,
just like, and about one child, and just connecting it, if you connect these things to just one child,
yeah, that's so
the reality of it, like
when you back to that the actual human being itself, like, because that's a thing that's a really thing of society that really just we don't see it in that way until you into it, and I think it really causes a lot of pain to think of it that way, and that's why people don't like to think of it in that way, because it makes you comfortable. Do you know what I mean? That's the way it.
But I think a lot of like good poetry and Sylvia Plath would be the same as well, like will make you uncomfortable as well, like
definitely,
like your job as an artist is to challenge ideas, and no matter what type of art it is, whether you're a poet or, you know, a playwright or, you know, a novelist, like you're challenging people, and sometimes you have to make people uncomfortable to kind of
make your message across. That's what Poland is all about, like the new language. That's what she's based change.
And then to bring it back to women, like that's what we have to do, like with all the kind of issues that face women, like in our time, in our generation, like one of the biggest kind of like movements was like the Me Too movement, and that was all about making people uncomfortable and calling people out, and like, not that we should have had to have done that, but like, because then I can imagine the poetry that's going to be written, like if you think of like, you know, and now there are so many female poets, and it's way more accessible, and so like just here, and already I've heard like, you know, stuff being shared, and just about, you know, kind of those kind of themes I think are gonna be huge. And again, when we're talking about like my grandchild in 50 years, you know, that's what they're going to be studying. They're going to be studying me. I'm going to be someone doing a Zoom, and then I'm going to be on it now. So then, just to break it a little bit, again, if anyone is watching and they'd like to ask a question or leave a comment, fire ahead. And just so to broaden it a bit, then outside of the Leaving Cert, like one thing I kind of realized I kind of feel bad about as a feminist and also as a poet was actually how few female poets I'm actually very familiar with. It was and I kind of like I just actually googled like at the weekend female poets, because I was like, and there was loads of them where I was like, oh yeah, I've read one of her poems, but it's made me, like, doing this has made me really want to just learn bodies of work from a lot of people. So we were talking, so Amber, like, and Ruby actually, one of the kind of poets, and it would be a younger poet that you have connected with in the last kind of year or so, is Ruby Carr. Can you talk a little bit about her poetry?
Yeah, like she has one of her most famous books. She has a lot of quotes from it. You kind of see them floating around the internet. Milk and Honey, Homebody, and her most themes that she addresses is like womanhood, abuse, power, healing, and like her work is so simple yet effective. And like, even in the Roxanna got me a book for Christmas. I love it, by the way. Called Homebody, and she, like, it's all about her experience with abuse as she was younger and growing up and being a woman. And she, like, some of them are literally so simple. It could be just a few words, and then she has these like illustrations in the book, and it's so simple, but it just touches you so much, because you like, it's like she's writing what's going on in your mind.
I think like and I know it's women in poetry, but I do have to mention a man. But I think I remember when I first read Bukowski as a teenager, and again, it's just such a cliche attached to him that I think a lot of people resent it as they get older. But like, one of the things that like he taught me is that a similar thing to Ruby Carr, where it's like a poem doesn't have to be like, you know, 4 lines, like that's a certain type of form, but like as in poetry is whatever you want it to be, like, you know, that kind of way. And sometimes a poem is just like just 2 lines of something, and it's just be like, it could just be a thought that's in your head, and she has these kind of cool illustrations that go all over the pages. And I think the thing about it is that as long as it's truthful and as long as it's real, people will connect with it. And then some of the other people were saying, Maya Angelou, I think that's another example of what we were talking about, like a lot of her poetry is so specific, like in loads of ways. Like it's about, you know, a Black woman who lived through a certain time in America, and it's so about that. But then you read something like Still I Rise, and like it feels like it was written for you, even though, you know,
you feel like
I'm a white woman living in Ireland, and like obviously we have our disadvantages as women, but like obviously privileged in loads of ways. We're doing this, like but then when I read like her stuff, like she'd be one of my all-time favorites. It's just the passion that, like, and again, rawness is another word we used earlier on. It's so, and that's another example of just how when you speak your truth, it's like
it's so impactful.
I actually don't know if it's hers or if it's just one of those ones. It's like, speak the truth even if your voice shakes. And I think that's her. But it's like that thing where it's like, as long as you are truthful, and I'm kind of repeating myself, but like, you know, kind of like,
100%.
Like, it can be easy just to kind of go, well, not easy, but like, then there is a certain style that's just like, it needs to rhyme, it needs to do this, and that's very impressive in its own way. But then
the structure and stuff,
you just need to read one line, and it's just like, you're just like, oh, like this is
like, because there's poems that I've like done in skill, and literally the whole poem, it's structured, it's rhyming, there's a rhythm, and then it's just one line that speaks to me, just one line that speaks to me. Could be one word, literally anything. And I think that's the beauty of it, because it's different for everybody. Like, that's why I love discussing poetry, because I'll be like, oh, this certain line touched me, and they'll be like, someone else be like, oh, this is what touched me, and this is why, and it's so amazing, like.
And so then that just brings me to your guys' poetry. So you, Ruby, I'll go to you first. You started writing poetry. How long ago was it?
I used to write a few like little quotes and stuff in my notes, and then I actually started properly writing poetry like the last 12 months, and then I actually started realizing, like, I'm actually good.
I'm actually deadly.
Then I started sending them to you, and then you were giving me like feedback and stuff, and like I was just like, I love doing this, like it's something I really enjoy, and it's something that helps me heal as well. I can't even express like the feeling of like when it all just comes out of you, and it's like it's just crazy, like it just flows, and it just works itself.
Go ahead. You, Amber, like, did you kind of like, because you said to me, you sent me a poem last night, and I was like, right, well, you're reading that tomorrow. And then I was like, you were like, oh, I've written loads of poems. I was like, why didn't you tell me? You were like, because they're not good. And I was like, that's not true. Like, but I think it's because they feel, if you think about it, like, they feel so personal to you. You're like, how can anyone like this? But my most personal poems are always the ones that are people identify. And I'm like, but that's so specific about this one.
I know, you don't think anyone could even relate to it.
How did you kind of find your voice, Amber?
I'm around yous. I'm around like poetry, do you know what I mean? And you and Ruby both inspire me as well in your poetry and the way you portray your emotions as well. But I'm a very like creative person, and I really like writing. I like talking, and I always write stuff down. I've been journaling literally since I'm young. I'm always journaling. So like at the odd time I just write like in my journal, like, and I wouldn't, it's not even that I'm like, I'm writing this poem, it rhymes, like I'm really just writing my thoughts. And then it really just came to me, do you know what I mean? It's not something that one day clicked and I was like, I'm doing poetry. It's just one of these things that has really just flowed into my life, and I just go with it. And I don't really show a lot of people. Like I have Ruby to show things to. But lately I've been kind of really focused on it because it really does help me express like my emotions.
Yeah, cool. So Amber, will you read the one that you sent to me last night?
Yeah, it's on my notes. I'll just airdrop it to Ruby there because I think. Can you still see me, Roxanna?
No.
All right, Barnes. I'll just airdrop it to Ruby real quick, and I'll say.
We're obviously all technological geniuses and know how to work technology really well.
Yeah, like I swear I'm not. We're like part of Gen Z. Right. You sent the wrong thing. No, I didn't send the wrong thing, Ruby. You did. Oh, actually, maybe I did. Oh, yeah, I did. Right, Ruby. Sorry for this. We'll wait.
You're okay.
Oh, she got there. Back here. So I'll just say it. I don't even have a word. Actually, the name of it is flower. Some of us didn't grow in fields of tulips and sunflowers. We bloomed in gloomy, burned out landscapes, acres of pain, poppies, and dark mountains. We climbed to escape, to reach a destination, a garden of our own. We try plant the seeds and water ourselves. We can shrink or expand. It's out of our control. But we heal in the soil and we try to let it go. There is life and beauty rooted deep within. Feel the tears and raindrops gently touch your skin. Your past does not define you. It makes you who you are. If you look closely into your future, you'll see that you are a galaxy filled with stars.
And I cried when you read that to me yesterday.
Really?
So I'm crying now.
Everything makes you cry.
That's true. And then that's all bye. No, we mustn't. Ruby, would you do us on a reading one of your poems?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. What's it called? I don't have a name for it yet. Hasn't came to me yet, but stop telling me what I went through was a lesson or a blessing in disguise. To realise the truth about the world that we live in today. You mean no harm, but trauma is not like a farm where you go to grow. Now I know that healing is slow and it takes time, and the pain does not define me. It's behind me, but it still weighs down like a heavy load on my shoulders. And as the nights are getting colder, seasons are changing, and so am I. The past is still draining because I'm sick of maintaining this image of a strong woman when I don't feel strong. Let me lie my tears for a while. They might wash away the shame and drown my fears and regain the spark that I once had, that was put out by some lad who didn't care that no means no. We need to stop telling our daughters that boys will be boys and to stop treating us like toys that have no other value than the fucking organ between our legs. So I'm begging please, stand with us, support us and believe us, and we will invent a new and beautiful world to raise our daughters in. Let us be heard, let us be seen, let us create.
Oh my God. I don't think I ever heard that before. Is that a new one?
No, I had it ages, but I lost it. But
Yeah.
I lost it. I lost the notebook that it was in, and then I remembered I took a picture of it, and I found it.
That was so powerful. God, like they're so powerful. I was like, if you're that powerful at 17, you're honestly gonna take over the world. Like by the time you're like,
where do you think we get it from?
there's just a comment here from Collect Rocket. I noticed reading Margaret Atwood. She writes as she speaks. It was interesting. I'm not that familiar. I read Handmaid's Tale, but I'm not that familiar with Margaret Atwood's poetry. I think she writes poetry because she came up when I was googling women poets. But I wonder if that means like does she write phonetically as she speaks?
Yeah, like
because
no,
that's something for me like important for my work is that it, like especially that what I perform that I'm not trying to
it's your colloquial language.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not trying to make it like sound like it was written by William Shakespeare. So, yeah, like I like the words I use are words that I would use in real life, and I mean sometimes I might just a couple of comments coming in on user work. wowzers, someone said. But yeah, I think like, especially for me, for what I write about, I would write a lot about class and women and working class women, because that is my life and my experience. So if I was to then write it as like as you know, the queen's English or the king's English, whatever you want to say, it just wouldn't, I don't think it would connect with people as much.
Yes,
So,
I
yeah,
agree.
I think like that's
An audience that you are directing to. So obviously you're a woman that was brought up in a working class area.
Yeah.
You know, and so if you were there writing about like experience that you can relate to in that way, that's the direction that you're going in. You're trying to like help other people relate to your situation. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm sure you because people go, oh my god, how did you come up with like, and I'm just like, you do just kind of write what you know. It's like
yeah,
what,
exactly.
as I'm getting, like, I mean, now what I'll do is I'll go back and I will like, I'll write in a spurt, and then I'll go back and edit stuff to be performed a bit better. Like if I'd love to publish a book, and maybe that would just look totally different to what I perform. But I think, yeah, ultimately it would always be like in my voice, and like, even like if I'm ever writing anything out and I write like bleeding, and it will autocorrect to bleeding, I'm just like, it doesn't look right, so I put back. Yeah, so I was just like
it's
two bleeding, right, you know, like I'm just like,
right.
So when I'm a published poet, it will say bleeding. Brilliant, girls. Wow, both of these poems are beautiful, truthful. There you go. So yeah, we've kind of come to the end now, and I would just have any finishing comments or closing comments, Ruby or Amber?
I want to say thank you for everyone who listened and all the nice feedback, and I hope someone was inspired, or maybe we'll look into female poetry a bit more. Maybe you might see us on the Leaving Cert curriculum one day.
And that's just really quickly, because obviously like we all have different Leaving Cert experiences, but actually for you, what's it been like doing it from lockdown, and having like your year is just the most, like, it's just the weirdest, like even the Leaving Cert last year, at least they had the start of it, they had some kind of semblance.
I know, but see, we did cover poetry before we went into lockdown, thankfully. So we'd be doing like King Lear and stuff like that now. It is difficult, but we have, like, you have to do what you have to do. Like, we're kind of adapting to it now. Yeah,
and at least with something like poetry, like you actually have an interest in that yourselves, so it's not like
exactly, it's not work. It's not like work.
Yeah. So you will get an A in English then, like, someone said brilliant chat, definitely got some inspiration. So I'm gonna close out by reading a poem which is like one of my favorite poems ever, from one of my favorite poets, female poets. I kind of hate saying female poets, but like that's what we're talking about. And it's by Mary Oliver, and it's called Wild Geese. Wild geese. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese high in the clean blue air are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things.
I love that. That's so beautiful.
Gorgeous.
Such a beautiful.
So if anyone wants to find my own work, I am on social media. Most of my poems are up on Instagram. It's at Nic Liam. So it's my last name with an O in it. What about you, girls? Is there somewhere you haven't shared?
Yeah, I'm gonna start sharing. Me and Amber are gonna start sharing our poetry and our art more, because we don't really that much. So we're making our New Year's resolution to start sharing it more, and to not care about, not to overthink what other people are thinking, because we look So my Instagram is Ruby Lennon 03. No, Ruby Lennon 0. Mine's Amber Lennon 123.
Yeah.
We
have like great discussions on there as well. Like if we're talking.
Yeah, and we're starting a YouTube channel. We're starting a YouTube channel soon as well. So we're going to be
earning that dollar. Get your old sister in an old folks' home. You have to look after her when she's old. Okay. Thanks so much for doing this with me, and thanks Axis for organising it, and thank you everyone who watched. And sorry about the technical troubles at the start. I hope that all kind of ironed itself out. And yeah, happy Imbolc and happy spring and happy
and happy women. Thank you.
Bye.